So, much like how the rest of the entire world felt, quarantine life, it really did the most, in the worst way that it possibly could. I mean, the Cheesecake Factory was closed, the movie theater is still non-existent, and I had contemplated taking sudden, drastic action against my hair so many times that I was prepared to come out of quarantine looking like Caillou. So, in times of widespread crisis, when Americans couldn't forget their woes with cheesecake or drown themselves in a bucket of popcorn, what was it that rose up and saved them from their own boredom? Was it baking? Napping? Buying a whole new World of Warcraft subscription because going back to your level 60 Death Knight from 10 years ago was the only thing left to do? No, the hero the American people needed was not any of these popular, simple pastimes. It was one that nobody could have seen coming. Like, nobody, absolutely nobody, saw Joe Exotic coming. Nobody. Unless you spent your quarantine up in a tree, that also wasn't in view of a television, then you've probably already seen Tiger King and know that the series is a gun-toting, country-singing, meme-inspiring wild time. And boy, did the internet have things to say about it. Now, my lovely viewer, I imagine that you too are familiar with the internet. It is a magical place. Sometimes. Most of the times it just acts as a way for people to get into explosive arguments over Facebook and for trolls to come out and ruin everything for everybody. So as you can imagine, when you combine the magic of the internet with Tiger King, you can see how things would get pretty explosive and misconstrued and completely, utterly exaggerated. Classic internet shenanigans, am I right, ladies? So when it comes to approaching these really messy conversations about Tiger King, I would usually just stay out of it because like I said, man, people, they just be acting crazy and I don't got time for all that. But the thing is, when it comes to Tiger King, things are different. And not just because it features Joe Exotic, who may actually be from another planetary system, but because underneath all the drama and conspiracy and random gunfire is a place that's very important to me. The place that's featured on this crazy Netflix series and the place I called home just last summer. Big Cat Rescue. Do you hear that? That's the sound of the kettle. Because it's time to spill the tea. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Tiger King, it fascinated me just as much as it did anyone else. I mean, one does not simply watch a show like Tiger King and expect to walk away unscathed. However, as someone who is getting a degree in conservation, knows about the issues facing big cat species, and has firsthand experience working at Big Cat Rescue, I can't ignore the fact that the show is admittedly problematic and that people have walked away with impressions that completely misrepresent Big Cat Rescue and what big cat sanctuaries across the world are trying to do. I'm also not gonna lie and tell you that I'll be spending time talking about the whole did Carol do it debate, because at the end of the day, Carol is not Big Cat Rescue. Whatever she did or didn't do should not take away from the mission of the sanctuary and all the good that it has done. So I apologize to all those meat grinder enthusiasts out there, but that is not what this video is about. This video is just about a sanctuary. A sanctuary that needs someone who personally knows it, admires it, and has the chance to speak up for it. So allow me to clear the air. Allow me to enlighten you. Let me show you who Big Cat Rescue really is, because if you're listening to Joe, then amigo, you got it all wrong. Sit down, bust out that teacup, and get ready to be hit with the cold hard facts, because boy, we are in quarantine and there is nothing else to do. Let me start by answering the question of, who is Big Cat Rescue? I mean, what are their goals? Where do the cats come from? What is the framework by which the sanctuary actually runs? What even is a sanctuary? Well, young padawan, let me tell you, you got your cup of tea ready? Good, good. The mission of Big Cat Rescue is ultimately this: to provide the best home they can for the cats in their care, ending the abuse of big cats in captivity, and preventing extinction of big cats in the wild. Of these objectives, the goal of ending the abuse of big cats in captivity is really at the forefront of Big Cat Rescue's work, and why they've made so many efforts to pass the Big Cat Public Safety Act. Passing this act will do two things. It will A, ban the private ownership of big cats, and B, put an end to cub petting, which is considered to be the #1 form of cat abuse in the country. As for the cats themselves, well, they come from all sorts of abusive situations. There's darling Priya, who was torn from her cubs time and time again so that they could be used in the cub petting industry. Biscuit-loving Tut, who was found starving and abandoned on the side of the road. And the outspoken Hutch, who was someone's pet for 11 years until they decided they just didn't want him anymore. As you can then imagine, the lives of these cats have been changed far too drastically to ever allow them to thrive in the wild. And that's where Big Cat Rescue steps in. The sanctuary essentially acts as a retirement home for these cats, a place where they can live out the rest of their days surrounded by giant cardboard boxes, scratchable trees, and all the catnip a feline could ever want. And it's because it is the well-being of the cats that's truly at the center of Big Cat Rescue's work that makes them one of the most successful GFAS accredited sanctuaries in the world. Now, if you were following me until I busted out that whole GFAS equation, don't worry, we're gonna break it down. A GFAS accredited sanctuary follows 5 basic rules. They do not buy, sell, trade, breed, or touch any animals under their care or otherwise. These last 2 rules are especially important to know because it's these policies that differentiate a sanctuary from a zoo. Big Cat Rescue doesn't breed its cats because that would mean breeding for life in the cage, which doesn't really help with the whole ending captivity goal. And its workers and volunteers never touch the cats because these are wild animals, and it's important to respect that. Also, I don't know about you, but I'm a 10 fingers, 10 toes kind of gal, and I don't want to be losing all that. So, by having this GFAS accreditation, Big Cat Rescue is considered to be a true animal sanctuary. It means that the standards of animal care are of such excellent quality that experts have agreed that this really is a safe haven for the animals that reside there, and that's really an accomplishment to be proud of. So hopefully you now have a better idea of who Big Cat Rescue really is, and you can start to differentiate between a true sanctuary and a sanctuary? Now, it's time for the nitty-gritty. Part of the reason I wanted to emphasize Big Cat Rescue's GFAS accreditation early on is because it's really what sets the framework for how the entire operation runs. Not touching the animals is a big deal. It means we never go into the cages with them, we never handle them, and we never have a chance of getting our arms bitten off. So how, might you ask, does one clean the cage of a tiger or lion or serval if you can't just magically pick them up and plop them somewhere? That, my friend, is where the tunnel system comes in. One of the criticisms that people have made about the sanctuary is the lack of enclosure space that each cat has to roam. And I can see why people would say that, because at first glance, you're right. It seems like each cat only has the length of the immediate cage they're sitting in. Upon closer inspection, however, you would quickly see that this isn't true. Rather, each cage is interconnected through a system of tunnels. So you might see Hutch here sitting in one part of the cage and think, okay, he got a cute face on him. And then you walk on for a few more minutes and you turn your head and it's like, oh, there he is again. Oh, okay. And then you walk on some more and it's like, freaking A, there he is again. How much cage space does this man have? And it is then that you realize how truly large each enclosure at Big Cat Rescue is. And I know, because I had to walk around those bad boys and clean them. They freaking huge. And the tunnel system isn't just made for the benefit of the cats. It also helps all the volunteers work as efficiently and safely as they possibly can when it comes to cleaning the enclosures. Remember what I said about keeping all 10 of those fingers and toes? Well, that's made possible by our good old friend, the tunnel system. By being able to lock the cats at a part of their enclosure, that allows the volunteers to go in and do exactly what they need to do. Rake up the dead leaves, trim precarious branches, lay down new dirt, and then sprinkle on some grass seed to add that last touch of finesse. It's great because then the cat can come back in and enjoy what is essentially a new living space, and the volunteers can walk away knowing that they were the ones able to safely provide that living space, with many calories burned, and all fingers and toes safely intact. So, Big Cat Rescue really operates to maximize the safety of both its feline residents and the volunteers who care for them. Unlike other places where if you get bit by a tiger, it's kind of like, whoopsie, better luck tomorrow, eh? Big Cat Rescue, they do the most, in the best way possible. And this prioritization of safety for its guests and cats is another thing that makes Big Cat Rescue unique. While zoos and other animal-oriented facilities are centered upon allowing their guests to walk freely amongst the site, Big Cat Rescue has a huge no bueno policy on letting people wander around the sanctuary unattended. And if you're thinking, what the freaking A is up with that?
Tell me about it.
Well, it all comes back to that magical rule of safety. Like I mentioned before, the cats at Big Cat Rescue come from all sorts of different situations. While some don't mind the occasional click of a camera, there are some cats that do. So while the whole guided tour thing may seem a bit extra, just know that it's Big Cat Rescue's way of making sure that both the cast and its guests are getting the best experience possible. Tour groups can steer clear of cats that aren't exactly fond of human attention, while guests get the chance to learn about, take photos of, and admire many other cats who are. Plus, that tour ticket you purchased? That moolah goes towards paying for the cat's breakfast tomorrow, so good on you, you good Samaritan, good on you. The last thing I want to touch on before this teapot runs dry is the whole issue behind the volunteer workforce. And now, I know people just say stuff because the dark magic of the internet just gets everyone fired up, but it really irks me when people want to A, criticize a place without doing any of their own research, and B, don't propose a better solution. I mean, anyone can complain about an issue, but not everyone is willing to look for an alternative. So, when critics want to fault Big Cat Rescue for relying on volunteers for performing the bulk of the sanctuary's work, cleaning the cages, feeding the cats, leading the tours, doing all the mundane stuff you gotta do to keep things running efficiently, these critics fail to realize the reality that Big Cat Rescue and many other sanctuaries have to face. What is that reality, you may ask? A cash money one. Big Cat Rescue doesn't have an unlimited amount of resources. Like many other sanctuaries and rehabilitation sites, the organization largely survives off of donations and volunteers. Yeah, it would be great if every single person at Big Cat Rescue was an employee who had some kind of degree in animal care. But the reality is that cash money, it's a finite thing, especially in the animal world. If there's one thing that I've learned throughout my time interning at animal rehab places, it's that the people who work there don't do it for the check. I mean, they can't. Animal care is largely a no-money toe-making business. The people who work in these areas are truly there for the animals, because they believe that what they're doing is what makes the world a better place. I mean, very few people would be willing to do the work that I've seen the employees at Big Cat Rescue do. So yeah, of course Big Cat Rescue depends on volunteers to do everything in a day that needs to get done, because there's simply too much work to do and not enough means to hire professionals to do it. And for the people who do volunteer there, well, they do it for the same reasons the middle school staff does. For the animals. People talk about the volunteer workforce as if they've been hypnotized by the wiles of Carol Baskin to carry out her extremely wicked will of making sure that all the cats are healthy and fed and living in optimal conditions. I mean, nah, son, the people who volunteer there, who dedicate hours if not days of their week, they do it because they love the cats. And without them, Big Cat Rescue couldn't exist and do the work that they do. I could go on about how the training at Big Cat Rescue works or do a ranking of every cat in order of cuteness, but I think I'll leave this topic here for now. My hope is that you, my dear viewer, have a better understanding of at least who Big Cat Rescue is, and how the facility is run as opposed to a lot of other places that exist out there. I hope you have a better understanding that Big Cat Rescue, it's much more than just one person. And when we talk about the sanctuary and the cats that live there, let the emphasis be on the cats. Let it be on what we can do to make their lives better, to stop the abuse that's happening now, and to open the door to a better future. Whatever the conspiracies, whatever the speculations, whatever you think did or didn't happen, let that be separate from the well-being of the cats. Because at the end of the day, the cats should not pay for someone else's crimes. And to ignore that and punish them for it, well, then I would have to question who the real criminal is.